The storm outside hammered the cabin walls as if the whole Montana night wanted to witness what was about to happen inside. Lightning cracked, throwing a white flash across the room, just enough for Martha Cunningham to see the cowboy's silhouette standing in the doorway. Broad shoulders, mud-splattered boots, and in his hands, that wooden box. Jesse Hartford kicked the door shut behind him, not gently, not nervously, with the confidence of a man who knew exactly what he was doing. "Sit," he said. His voice wasn't raised. It didn't need to be. It rolled through the cabin with the same weight as the thunder outside. Martha didn't move. She couldn't. Her wedding dress, simple cotton, the kind Boston would have mocked her for, felt too tight across her chest. Her breath caught as Jesse placed the box on the small table between them. A plain thing, carved from dark walnut, but with iron hinges strong enough to lock away secrets. "Before anything else," he said, "you need to see what's in here." Martha's heart slammed once, hard. Every memory of her past, every time someone told her she was too tall, too strong, too much tightened around her throat. Mail-order bride, a title she never thought she'd wear. But Boston had shut every door in her face, and Jesse Hartford's letter had been the only hand extended. Thunder shook the cabin again. Jesse opened the box. Inside, resting on emerald velvet, were 2 rings thick, solid, unmistakably expensive. But beside them lay something far more terrifying. Documents stamped with the official seal of the Montana Territory. Deed papers. "Half my ranch," Jesse said. "Signed over to you." Martha staggered back a step. "Why? Why would you give me that?" Finally, the cowboy looked up. His eyes weren't soft. They weren't gentle. They were honest. "Because I didn't send for a delicate bride," he said. "I sent for a partner. Someone strong enough to survive out here. Strong enough to stand beside me, not behind me." The words struck her deeper than any thunder. Partner? Not property. Not burden. Her breath shook. For the first time since stepping foot in Montana, she didn't feel like an oversized misfit. She felt seen, but fear still clung to her ribs. "Jesse, I don't know how to be what you expect." Lightning flashed again, catching the faintest curve of a smile on his mouth. Tired, tragic, but real. "I don't want you to be anything except what you already are." The storm roared, but inside the cabin, a different kind of battle had begun. One between the doubts she carried from Boston and the possibility that, for the first time in her life, someone didn't want her smaller. Someone wanted her strong. And the box between them was only the beginning. The storm didn't ease by morning. Instead, it settled into a low, angry growl that rolled across the mountains like a living thing. Jesse had already been outside for hours, dealing with whatever emergencies a ranch of his size never failed to produce. After heavy weather, Martha watched his shape disappear into the wet gray dawn, feeling the strange weight of the previous night pressing against her ribs. Half his ranch, half of everything he owned, given to a woman he had never met until yesterday. The box still sat on the table where Jesse had left it, the rings glinting softly in the weak morning light. Martha reached toward it, hesitated, then finally allowed her fingers to trace the cool metal of the thicker ring. It was too large for any delicate Boston girl, too wide, too heavy. But when she lifted it, the ring felt right in her palm, as though it belonged to hands that were made to work, to build, to endure. She tightened her jaw. Boston had always made her feel wrong. Montana, in a single night, had not. Yet doubts crept in like the cold. What if she disappointed him? What if she had misunderstood everything? A man didn't simply hand over half a kingdom, unless he needed something he wasn't saying. Perhaps strength wasn't all he was after. Perhaps he wanted someone who could bury a part of her soul and pretend it didn't hurt. The door suddenly slammed open. Martha flinched, but it was only Rory, Jesse's foreman, shaking the rain from his hat. His eyes swept over her with a blend of curiosity and something sharper. "So you're the missus," he said. Not quite disrespectful, but far from welcoming. "I am," Martha answered, straightening. Rory grunted. "Jesse said you'd help." "Good. We've got a mess in the north pasture. Fences down, cattle spooked. You ride." Martha blinked. Ride? Of course she could. She wasn't some fragile Boston flower. But no one had ever expected her to, not even her own family. "Yes," she said, more firmly than she felt. "I can ride." Rory seemed unconvinced. "We'll see. Saddle up. Jesse won't say it, but he needs you out there." Martha's heart kicked. He needed her. Already. She grabbed Jesse's old raincoat. By the door it practically swallowed her, but she didn't care. For once, she wasn't trying to look smaller. She followed Rory into the storm, stepping through mud that sucked at her boots, wind whipping her hair against her cheeks. When they reached the stables, a tall bay mare tossed her head and snorted loudly at Martha, as if testing her spirit. Martha met the animal's gaze with the same stubborn resolve she had shown Jesse the night before. "Good," Rory muttered. "She either respect you or throw you." Martha swung into the saddle. The mare didn't move. She didn't buck. She accepted her, and something in Martha's chest warmed, despite the biting rain. "Let's go," Rory shouted over the wind. "Show Jesse he wasn't wrong about you." The wind cut sideways across the plains, sharp as a blade, carrying the smell of wet earth and frightened cattle. Martha leaned low over the mare's neck as they crested the ridge. Below, chaos moved, dark shapes, scattering, pushing against each other. The herd restless and on the edge of panic. Broken fence posts jutted from the ground like snapped bones. Rory cursed under his breath. "Damn storm spooked M worse than I thought." Martha scanned the scene quickly. She saw what Rory missed: 3 calves stuck in a dip where water had gathered. 2 adults circling them in frantic confusion. If they bolted, the babies could drown in the rising runoff. "I'll get the calves," she said. Rory turned sharply. "No, too risky. You stay with the line and—" But Martha was already riding. The mare surged forward, mud spraying behind her. Every hoofall sent vibrations up Martha's spine. But she held steady, guiding the animal down the slippery slope. Rory shouted, something lost to the wind, but she kept going. When she reached the trapped calves, she slid off the saddle and waded into the cold water. It wasn't deep, but the ground beneath was unstable. Each step sank, sucking her down. The calves bleated, scared and frantic. "Easy now," Martha murmured, gripping the nearest by the scruff. The little creature fought her at first, hooves splashing wildly, but she didn't let go. She used her strength not to overpower, but to steady, to reassure. One by one, she guided them to higher ground, pushing, lifting, coaxing until all 3 stumbled free. Their mothers bumped them away protectively, and the small herd settled enough to stop the chain reaction of panic. When Martha mounted again, Rory stared at her like he'd misjudged something important. "Most women would have screamed for help," he said. Martha wiped rain from her eyes. "Most women from Boston would have—" "I'm not them." Rory gave a reluctant half-smile. "No? Guess you're not. But the test wasn't over. They rode the fence line, hammering loose boards back into place. The storm had torn through like a mad animal, leaving splintered posts lying across the mud. Martha held the boards steady while Rory drove nails into them with the back of his hatchet. Her muscles burned, but she didn't let her grip slip. Even when the wind shoved her sideways, by the time the line was restored, both were soaked to the bone, but the herd was contained, and the worst danger had passed. Rory finally spoke again. When Jesse said he needed someone strong, he said, "I didn't think he meant this strong." Martha looked across the wild, storm-lashed landscape. For the first time in her life, the size and strength she'd been shamed for felt like weapons she could wield. "Maybe," she said quietly. He knew exactly what he needed. The wind outside rose again, scraping across the barn walls like claws. Jesse moved to secure the doors, but Martha caught the shift in his shoulders, the subtle tightening, the tension that didn't belong to broken fences or restless cattle. This was something older, something buried. "Jesse," she said softly, "what's really going on?" He paused with his hand on the latch. For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he exhaled a slow, heavy breath that sounded like surrender. "There's a reason I wanted a strong woman," he said. "A reason I can't take someone fragile into this life." Martha stepped closer, boots squelching in the straw. "Rory hinted at something earlier, something that wasn't my place to ask." Jesse's jaw worked. He kept his eyes on the barn door, as if afraid to look at her. "My first wife," he began, "was gentle. Too gentle for this place. She wasn't built for storms or wolves or the kind of men who think the frontier is theirs for the taking." He leaned on the wooden beam, head bowed. "She died because this land demanded more than she had to give." Martha felt the ache in his voice like a physical force, not weakness, not guilt exactly, but a wound that had never healed. "And the child?" she asked quietly. Jesse's throat moved. "Gone with her." Silence swept through the barn, deeper than the storm outside. Martha reached out, resting a hand on the beam between them. She didn't touch him directly, but she offered him her presence, her steadiness. "Jesse," she said, "you don't have to carry that alone." He gave a short, bitter laugh. "I've carried it so long I wouldn't know how to put it down." "Then let me help." His eyes finally met her, stark, guarded, but searching for something. Maybe permission, maybe forgiveness. But before he could speak, a sudden shout cut through the wind from outside. "Jesse, Martha!" Rory's voice surged, strained. Jesse yanked the barn doors open, and cold air punched into them. Rory raced toward them, boots slipping in the mud. "What happened?" Jesse called out. Rory stopped, panting hard. "The creek's rising again, faster than we thought. If it floods the lower field, we'll lose the entire south herd." Jesse didn't hesitate. "Saddle the roans. Martha, get the lanterns. We ride now." Martha didn't question it. She grabbed 2 lanterns, their glass still warm from the morning lighting. Jesse swung onto his horse, and Rory mounted beside him. But before she climbed onto her mare, Jesse turned sharply, toward her. "This time," he said, voice harder than before, "you stay behind me. No charging ahead alone." Martha nodded, but inside, a quiet promise rose like steel. She would follow him. She would help him. But she would not be a shadow. Not now. Not ever. Night fell fast over the ranch, swallowing the land in a murky blue darkness broken only by the swing of lantern light. Martha gripped hers tightly as her mare splashed through the deepening mud. The creek, normally a quiet ribbon snaking through the lower fields, had transformed into a roaring, swollen beast. The sound of it grew louder with every yard they rode. Jesse pushed forward, his silhouette sharp against the moving glow. "Stay close," he called. The order was firm, but beneath it, Martha heard something else fear. Not of the storm, but of losing someone again. Rory rode on the other side of her, scanning the horizon. If the water reaches the south fence line, the herd will panic. They'll crush each other trying to escape. Martha swallowed, her pulse loud in her ears. The herd was everything: livelihood, future, survival. And if they lost it now, Jesse's gesture of giving her half the ranch would be nothing more than a memory of what could have been. They reached the rise overlooking the lower field. Lanterns flickered as the wind howled, revealing a terrifying scene below. The creek had burst its banks, slashing across the pasture in violent currents. Dark shapes Cattell moved uneasily, milling too close to the water's edge. Jesse cursed under his breath. If the water cuts deeper, they'll be swept off. "What do we do?" Martha asked. Jesse turned to her. Rain dripped from the brim of his hat, his eyes steady and fierce. "We drive them uphill. They fear light more than water. We circle them, push them as a unit." Rory spit into the mud. Easier said than done in this hell. But Jesse wasn't listening anymore. He kicked his horse forward, riding along the edge of the rising creek. Rory followed, shouting directions over the storm. Martha hesitated only a heartbeat before guiding her mare after them. The herd bellowed hooves, sloshing in the knee-deep water. Lantern light flashed in their rolling eyes. Jesse rode wide arcs, pushing the outer cattle back, while Rory cut across the rear to keep them moving in a tight line. Martha saw a gap forming toward the water. Two steers inching dangerously close to the swirling current. Without thinking, she galloped toward them. "Martha!" Jesse shouted. "Wait!" But she was already there. She swung the lantern high, waving it in a tight circle. The flame flickered wildly in the wind, but didn't die. The steers hesitated, snorted, then backed away from the light. Martha guided them toward the rest of the herd, pushing them into the formation Jesse was building. The moment she rejoined the group, Jesse pulled his horse beside hers. Rain streaked across his face, but his eyes burned with a fire the storm couldn't dim. "I said stay behind me." "I did what needed to be done," she answered. Lightning flashed, illuminating the stubborn tilt of his jaw. "This land will kill you if you don't respect it," he growled. "And it'll kill the herd if we don't act," she shot back. They pushed the herd slowly uphill, step by grueling step, until the cattle finally began to move as one solid mass, instead of a panicked scatter. The storm raged overhead, but the worst of the chaos seemed to ease. The ground became firmer, and the roar of the creek grew a little more distant. But Martha sensed it before she saw Itha shift in the wind. The tremble beneath her horse's hooves. A warning the land whispered only to those paying attention. "Jesse," she called. "The banks, something's wrong." He turned, just as a deep cracking sound tore through the night. The far edge of the creek soaked through. Weakened by hours of flooding, gave way in a violent collapse. Water surged forward like an unleashed monster. "Move!" Jesse shouted. "Drive them faster." Rory whipped his reins, shouting commands. The herd responded, stumbling but pushing upward. But Martha saw the real danger. The collapse had opened a new channel, and water was rushing toward the lower flank of the herd with terrifying speed. Two calves, lagging behind, stood frozen in the sudden torrent. Martha didn't think. She reacted. She spurred her mare forward, racing down the slope before Jesse could stop her. The lantern swung wildly, throwing erratic arcs of light across the waterlogged field. "Martha!" Jesse roared behind her. "Don't!" But she was already weaving between the larger cattle, fighting the current that rose higher with every second. Her mare fought to keep balance, hooves slipping in the mud. Yet she pressed on until she reached the calves' small, trembling shapes, struggling against the icy water. "Come on," she urged, leaning down, gripping the closest one by its slick hide. She pulled, guiding, dragging it toward higher ground. The second calf stumbled behind them, bleeding desperately. The water climbed to her knees, then her thighs. The force of it shoved her sideways, nearly knocking her off the saddle. Her mare whinnied in panic hand, then the current caught them. They slid. For one terrifying heartbeat, Martha felt the world tilt, the darkness swallowing the horizon. The waters surged, dragging horse and rider toward the deeper cut of the creek. Then, a hand strong closed around her arm. "Martha!" Jesse's voice cut through the storm. His horse braced on higher ground as he leaned with impossible strength, pulling her back inch by inch. Water fought him, clawing at her legs, her boots, her coat. Her mare kicked wildly, trying to find footing. "Hold on," Jesse shouted. She did. With a final heave, he ripped her free of the current. She collapsed against his saddle, breathless, shaking. The calves scrambled to safety behind them, nudged uphill by Rory. Jesse held her still, one arm locked around her waist. Rain ran down both their faces, but he didn't seem to notice. "What were you thinking?" he rasped. "That they needed help," she whispered. His forehead pressed briefly against hers, just long enough for her to feel the tremor in his breath. By the time they returned to the ranch, the storm had finally exhausted itself. The sky hung heavy and purple, like bruised velvet, and the last drops of rain slid from the barn roof in quiet, steady taps. Martha's clothes clung to her skin, still soaked, still carrying the chill from the creek. Jesse didn't release her arm until they were inside the barn, the lantern light casting long shadows behind them. Rory peeled off toward the stalls to check the horses, leaving them alone. Jesse turned to Martha, jaw clenched, eyes dark with something she couldn't quite name: fear, anger, relief, maybe all of it at once. "You could have died," he said. "So could those calves," she replied. "That's not the same." "It is to me." The words hung between them like a struck bell. Martha stepped back, pulling off her wet coat, letting it fall with a heavy splat onto the straw-covered floor. "You keep expecting me to be careful," she said, "to hold back, to be small enough to fit inside whatever box you think keeps people safe. But you didn't choose a fragile woman. You chose me. I know who I chose." His voice dropped low, rough. "That's what scares the hell out of me." She froze. Jesse scrubbed a hand through his wet hair, pacing once before facing her again. "I already buried one woman." "I am not," his voice cracked, just for a moment. "I am not doing that again." The barn seemed to shrink around them. The smell of hay and rain and horse filled the air, warm and alive. Martha stepped closer, her boots sinking softly into the straw. "You didn't bury her," Martha said gently. "The land took her, and it wasn't because she was weak. It was because she was alone when it happened." Jesse looked up sharply. "And I won't be," Martha continued. "Not if you stop treating me like I'm one breath away from breaking." He stared at her, as if seeing her for the first time not as a mail-order stranger, not as a responsibility he'd taken on, but as a woman who would fight beside him, not behind him. "Martha," he whispered. Lightning didn't flash this time. No thunder followed, but the moment cracked open like a fault line anyway. Jesse reached out, stopping his hand just before touching her cheek. hesitating in a way that didn't match the fearless cowboy that town knew. Then, slowly, deliberately, he let his fingers brush her skin. "You're strong," he murmured. "Stronger than I ever expected. Stronger than I knew I needed." She leaned into the touch, heart pounding with every word. "But strength cuts both ways," he added. "It can save you, or it can drive you straight into danger. And love does the same," she said quietly. His hand stilled. The word hung between them, spoken until now, but impossible to ignore. Jessie stepped closer. So close, she could feel the warmth radiating through his soaked shirt. "I'm not ready to lose again," he said. "Not you. Not anyone." Martha's breath trembled. "Then stop shutting me out," she whispered. The barn felt smaller with every breath they shared. The storm had passed, but its echo lingered in the air, heavy electric, waiting. Martha's pulse beat loud in her ears as Jessie lowered his hand, not pulling away entirely, but resting it against the beam beside her, caging her in without touching her, not trapping, or maybe protecting himself. "Martha," he said quietly, "I didn't bring you here just to help with the land." She swallowed. "Then why?" His eyes flicked away, then returned to hers with raw honesty that startled her. "Because I was drowning." The words were barely above a whisper, yet they hit harder than any thunder. Martha straightened, breath-catching. "After my wife died," Jessie continued, "I kept this ranch alive, the only way. I knew how by working until I couldn't think. By fighting storms, wolves, outlaws, anything that wasn't grief." Martha stayed silent, letting him speak. "But grief doesn't stay buried. It waits. And when winter came last year, it nearly took me with it." His voice roughened. "The ranch needed someone who could stand their ground. I needed someone who wouldn't disappear the moment life got harsh." "So you sent for a stranger?" Martha said softly. "Not just any stranger." Jessie's gaze held hers. "I read every letter twice. Yours 3 times. You wrote like a person who refuses to bend for anyone who doesn't deserve it. I needed that. I chose that." Martha felt heat rise in her chest. Shock, gratitude, something deeper that she hadn't let herself name. "But I didn't expect..." He hesitated, jaw tightening. "I didn't expect to feel anything again. And definitely not this strong. Not this fast." Her breath hitched. He stepped closer, not touching her, just closer. Close enough to feel the warmth of him. The storm-battered shape of a man who had carried too much for too long. "You're not a burden," he said. "You're not too much. You're not something I need to manage or restrain. You're..." He exhaled sharply. "You're exactly what this place needs. Exactly what I need." Martha's throat tightened. She wanted to speak, but the words tangled inside her. "And that terrifies me," Jessie finished. Soft hoofbeats echoed from the far end of the barn, Rory, returning. He stopped when he saw them, eyes narrowing slightly, but he said nothing. He simply checked the nearest stall, giving them a moment of privacy without acknowledging it aloud. Jessie stepped back, but only an inch. "We should get you warmed," he said, voice steadier now. "You'll freeze in those clothes." Martha nodded, though her heart still pounded from everything he'd revealed. She turned toward the barn doors, but Jessie caught her wrist gently, as if he couldn't quite let go yet. "I meant what I said," he murmured. "I'm not losing you." She held his gaze, feeling her own fear slowly unraveling in the warmth spreading through her chest. "Then don't push me away," she whispered. "Not when I'm trying to walk beside you." Dawn broke over the mountains in soft gold, as if the land itself wanted to apologize for the merciless storm of the night before. Mist curled across the pastures, drifting low and quiet like breath exhaled by the earth. Martha stepped outside the cabin, her muscles stiff, her clothes clean but still carrying the faint scent of hay and rain. Today felt different, not commercial. Rory was already in the yard, feeding the horses. He lifted his chin when he saw her. "Hartford wants you by the east field," he said. Didn't say why. Martha wiped her hands on her skirt. "Is something wrong?" "Not wrong," Rory replied, adjusting a saddle strap. "Important." He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. Something in his voice told her, this day matters. She walked across the ranch, boots crunching through damp grass. The sun hadn't fully risen, but its orange glow painted the sky in streaks of fire. The air smelled of wet sage and promise. Jesse waited by the east fence line, leaning against a post he'd repaired himself. A folder of documents rested on the rail beside him. When he looked up, something shifted in his expression, not the guarded calm she'd seen before, not the desperate strain of last night, but a quiet certainty. "You came," he said. "You asked," she answered. He liked that. She saw the flicker of a smile, brief but real. "Martha," he began, picking up the folder, "the ranch survived because of you. If you hadn't acted fast with those calves, if you hadn't kept the herd moving when the bank gave way," he paused, eyes steady on hers, "I would have lost a lot more than cattle." Martha felt heat rise under her skin, not embarrassment, but a fierce pride she'd never been allowed to feel before. "I just did what needed doing," she said. "You did more than that." Jesse opened the folder and held out the papers she recognized instantly, the deed. The transfer of ownership. The signature line with her name beneath it. Her breath caught. "I already told you I'd give you half the ranch," he said quietly, "but last night, you earned it. Not because you're my wife. Not because of some agreement we made miles apart." He met her gaze fully, with nothing hidden. "You earned it because this land responds to you. Because you fought for it like it was already yours." Martha reached out, fingertips brushing the paper, but she didn't take it yet. Her throat tightened. "Jesse, you don't owe me this." "I know," he said. "That's why I'm giving it." The wind swept between them, cool and clean. The ranch stretched behind him, fields, fences, mountains, rivers live and vast and unforgiving. A place that demanded strength, that punished hesitation, that shaped people into steel or broke them. A place that was offering her a home. Not because she had nowhere else to go, but because she belonged here. "Take it," Jesse said softly. "Not as payment. Not as protection. As a partner." Martha closed her hand around the deed. Martha held the deed in her hands, feeling the weight of the paper and everything it represented. The rising sun caught its edges, turning the parchment gold. For a moment, she simply stood there, letting the reality settle into her bones. Half the ranch, not gifted, not offered out of pity, earned. When she finally looked up, Jesse was watching her with an expression she hadn't seen before, something stripped of every mask, every shield, something vulnerable. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't have to thank me," he replied. "Just stay." The words were simple, but they struck her harder than any storm. She stepped toward him across the damp grass. Jesse didn't move away. He didn't look uncertain. He looked ready. Ready in a way he hadn't been until now. "I meant what I said last night," Martha told him. "I'm not fragile, and I'm not going anywhere." His shoulders eased, just slightly, as if the tension he'd carried for years finally loosened. The sun climbed higher, casting light over his face, revealing the quiet exhaustion carved into his features, veined the hope beneath it. "Martha," he said, voice low, "you changed this place. You changed me." She shook her head. "You didn't need changing. You just needed someone to see you." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he reached out, very slowly, as if giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hand touched her cheek, thumb grazing her skin with a tenderness she never imagined he possessed. "Martha Hartford," he said, "I've been holding on to ghosts longer than I should. But you bring me back to the living." Her breath trembled. The world around them, the ranch, the fields, the lingering mist, fading until only the warmth of his touch remained. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'm right here." Jesse leaned in, but not with urgency or desperation. It was something steadier, something earned, something that had grown through storms and danger and fear. When his lips met hers, the kiss wasn't a spark. It was a grounding, a claiming, a promise. His hands came to rest on her waist, hers against his chest, feeling the quiet thunder of his heartbeat. It was the first moment between them, untouched by fear or hesitation. When they finally separated, Jesse rested his forehead against hers. "We'll build this place together," he murmured. "Every fence, every field, every future." Martha smiled, the weight of her old life falling away like broken shackles. "I know we will." Rory's voice carried from across the yard. "Jesse, Martha, you two done? We've got fence posts to replace before sundown." Jesse huffed a laugh, pulling back but keeping her hand in his. "Back to work?" "Back to work," she agreed. Hand in hand, they walked toward the fields, not as strangers, not as two people bound by an arrangement, but as partners forged by the wild land that demanded everything and returned only to those who dared claim it. The ranch had tested her. The storm had revealed him